While I was doing my husband's laundry during my pregnancy, I discovered a lipstick mark on his underwear. I said nothing and endured it for 6 months. Then, I left him with nothing, and his mistress suffered a severe injury in a car accident. He angrily scolded me. If I could do it all over again, I would never marry a malicious hag like you. Unexpectedly, his words came true, and we were both reborn. This time, he married his true love as he wished, but in the end, he cried and told me he regretted it. Unfortunately, I just wanted him to get lost. Chapter 1. The rebirth happened on the night of my birthday party, the same evening when my husband, James, declared his love for me in front of our college classmates. We were so young and naive then, believing that love could withstand all the storms ahead. Later, we learned that love could fade, worn down by life's challenges, leaving behind only complaints and trivialities. Just like now, James, who had already lived once, suddenly pushed me away as if he had woken up from a trance. Caught off guard, I fell heavily, knocking over the cake, and the colorful cream stained my white dress. But James felt no guilt. Amid the shocked gazes of others, he stared at me with hatred. Our classmates quickly helped me up. "Zoe, are you all right?" "James, what are you doing? Have you gone mad?" It was only after being reprimanded by our classmates that James seemed to realize he had truly been reborn. He first laughed inexplicably and then humiliated me. "Zoe, do you really think I like you? I was just messing with you. How could I possibly like you? Just looking at your face makes me nauseous. I will never like you in this life. Get over it." The entire room fell silent, everyone staring at me and James in shock. Seeing his face, memories of our previous life flashed in my mind, especially the scene at the Civil Affairs Bureau where we held our divorce certificates. He gritted his teeth in hatred, blaming all the mistakes on me. "If it weren't for you being infertile, would my mom have pressured you? If you didn't act like a resentful woman every day, suffocating me, would I have fallen for Sarah? If I could do it all over again, I would never marry a malicious hag like you." When I clenched my fists, ready to smash a beer bottle over his head, my best friend Sarah, who had been quietly upset in the corner, stepped in front of me. "James, how can you say such things? You know Zoe has had a crush on you for years. Even if you don't like her, you can't humiliate her like this. And today is her birthday. This is too much." Her words sounded like she was defending me, but in reality, she was hinting to everyone that I was just a fool in love with James. When James saw Sarah, his gaze shifted to her legs, a hint of joy flashing in his eyes. "Sarah! Hey, Emph!" Sarah ignored James and pulled me towards the door. "Zoe, let's go to the bathroom to clean your dress." I held back my anger and didn't refuse. Once we reached the hallway, I slapped Sarah twice. My hatred for Sarah was no less than for James. In our previous life, I always considered her my best friend. After her husband died, I pitied her, loaned her money to rent a house, and even helped take care of her 3-year-old son. I never expected her to betray me with James while I was expecting. Sarah clutched her face in disbelief, looking extremely aggrieved. "Zoe, why are you hitting me? Just because James doesn't want you, you can't take it out on me." James came out just in time to see this. He shielded Sarah behind him. "Zoe, I will never love you in this life. If you dare touch her again, I won't let you off." Did James think I still loved him and was hitting Sarah out of jealousy? How laughable! I spoke disdainfully. "Fine, I hope you two can live happily ever after and not repeat our mistakes." Sarah looked at me in surprise and grievance. "Zoe, what are you talking about? There's nothing between me and James. You must be mistaken." Pretending to be virtuous while playing the victim, Sarah had been like this since college. I was too naive to see her feelings for James and foolishly shared everything about us with her. Even when I caught them in bed, she disgusted me by saying, "James and I have been involved since college. If he didn't pity you, he would have been with me long ago. Forget it, having a chance to live again, there's no need to waste my life on these two scumbags." So, without looking at them again, I turned and left. Chapter 2. Returning home, I was overwhelmed with emotion seeing my young and healthy parents. In my previous life, my parents didn't approve of James, but I was determined to marry him, making them furious. James was tall and handsome, but his family background was poor. When my parents first met his parents, they were crude, superstitious, and selfish. Our James is now a government employee, destined to be a director. If Zoe marries him and lives in a rented house, people will laugh at her. I heard you have a 4-bedroom apartment. Why not put it in their names as a marital home? James said nothing. I was foolishly in love and thought his parents were just being realistic, ignoring my parents' grim expressions. My father, a university professor, and my mother, a dance troupe teacher, were always dignified. They silently endured the meal but were furious when we got home. The first time meeting us, they're already eyeing our house. Zoe, you absolutely cannot marry into such a family. James is no good either. That freeloader look of his is infuriating. They had foresight, but I was too deep in my love dream to listen, thinking my parents were snobbish for looking down on rural people. I even cut ties with them to marry James, breaking their hearts. The first year of marriage was sweet, but when James moved his parents in, my days were miserable. I wanted to continue my studies, but James's mother pressured me to have a child daily, so I gave up and found a job as a broadcast host. After a year, I still wasn't expecting, so James and I saw a doctor and discovered it was my issue. His mother became nastier, calling me barren. Desperate to conceive, I quit my job and turned to IVF. Enduring painful injections and procedures, I faced disappointment after disappointment. My mother-in-law showed no sympathy, continually abusing me verbally. Why aren't you expecting yet? Did you have a termination before? Is your womb damaged? If you have any conscience, confess if you've been with many men and done shameful things. If you can't conceive, you'll have to divorce my son. We can't let him be wasted on you. She constantly brought bizarre remedies, forcing me to drink them. The worst was a live toad. Those were the darkest days of my life. I wanted a divorce but endured because James treated me well, comforting me with sweet words daily and even arguing with his mother for me. Mom, if you keep this up, we'll move out. James became my only emotional support. I thought everything would be fine once I got pregnant. But when I finally conceived, I discovered a lipstick mark on James's underwear. I instantly recognized it as Sarah's doing. After getting pregnant, I had given her all my makeup, including that lipstick. She deliberately left that mark as a provocation. She knew I wouldn't tolerate it and would divorce James. But I endured, pretending to know nothing, secretly consulting a divorce lawyer, and gathering evidence to transfer assets. Once fully prepared, I terminated the 6-month pregnancy. They wanted a grandson so badly. In a fit of rage, I packaged the terminated fetus and sent it to James's office, along with divorce papers. In one day, James was utterly destroyed. His parents came to our house, crying and making a scene. Chapter 3. But I felt no satisfaction in revenge because I had ended my child's life. I felt like a vicious person. I hated them for ruining my life and beliefs. If not for my parents' unconditional love and acceptance, my severe depression would have driven me to a dark place. But heaven gave me another chance to choose again. This time, I looked at my parents and said, Mom, Dad, after graduation, I want to continue my studies. They were touched. We support your decision. I continued. What if I don't want to get married? They smiled. Then stay with us. As long as you're happy, live however you want. See, these are my enlightened, unconditionally loving parents. I was foolish to betray them for a man. This time, I'll love myself and them more and live a good life. Returning to university, I saw my young, tall, naturally beautiful reflection in the window. I felt an unprecedented surge of confidence. As I walked through campus with my suitcase, many people turned to look at me. Even some boys blushingly asked for my contact info. I was a campus beauty. James liked me for my looks and family background. How did I end up humbling myself for such a scumbag? Marriage isn't necessary, but men are. How else can I enjoy my youth? Besides, making friends and connections can build a network. Soon, I had more admirers than in my previous life. My name frequently appeared on the confession wall. I joined the debate team and the host group, gaining recognition and appreciation from my mentors. One evening, I met a tall, athletic student at a cafe. Coincidentally, James and Sarah were there. I've heard a lot about their exploits lately: James's relentless pursuit and elaborate confessions, Sarah tearfully accepting, and their perfect match. Their high-profile displays of affection often appeared on social media. But these only disgusted me, stirring no other emotions. I had already avenged myself in my previous life and moved on. But James seemed unwilling to let me go. In the cafe, where I was chatting with the athletic student, Sarah, clinging to James, approached me looking pitiful. "Zoe, why haven't you answered my calls or messages? Are you still mad at me? Zoe, I don't want to lose you as a friend. Can you forgive me?" James chimed in. "Sarah, you don't need to grovel to her. I've always loved you. We did nothing wrong to her." In our previous life, when I caught them in bed, James had begged for my forgiveness. Now, they were openly together. I understood his current arrogance and satisfaction. As for Sarah, who didn't have memories of the previous life, she was just showing off for stealing the campus beauty's man. My family background, popularity, and looks outshone hers. Yet, her crush liked me. She was insanely jealous. The scene became awkward. The athletic student looked at me stiffly, and the people in the shop watched silently, expecting a drama. I finally spoke. "Take him. Three-legged toads are hard to find, but two-legged men are everywhere, especially scumbags." I smiled, leisurely sipped my drink, and turned to the athletic student. "We have things to discuss. Can you not interrupt?" Chapter 4. Sarah was stunned, and the onlookers eyed her like a clown. She stubbornly continued. "Zoe, everyone knows you've had a crush on James for 3 years. You must be devastated. But don't find a random boyfriend to spite us, it makes me feel guilty." James, feeling insulted, started mocking me. "You're really desperate." But his words deeply insulted the athletic student, who angrily retorted. "Your whole family is desperate. Don't think I won't hit you." Compared to the muscular, tall athlete, James was quickly beaten into a pulp. The crowd intervened, and I watched the show. Security arrived, and we were all taken to the principal's office. Many people in the shop had witnessed James and Sarah's provocation and even posted videos online. Since they were in the wrong, and knowing the athletic student and I were in the debate team discussing upcoming debates, the students and teachers sided with us. The athletic student, wealthy and stubborn, paid James's medical bills but refused to apologize. In contrast, James and Sarah, after some scolding from the teachers, had to apologize to us. After this incident, James and Sarah's reputation plummeted, especially Sarah's deceitful behavior. Rumor has it that her dorm mates began isolating her. My life, distant from James and Sarah, became more exciting. By the end of my 3rd year, I became the debate team captain and represented our school in the National University Debate Competition, winning a gold medal. I also became an important member of the host group, hosting various events. At the end of the semester, I received a national scholarship for my excellent grades and was unexpectedly offered a spot for a master's degree. An extraordinary life I never dared dream of in my previous life. However, with his memories of the past, James's life also flourished. He reportedly made a fortune from stock trading within a year, bought a mansion, and drove a luxury car before graduating. Knowing the future is like holding the key to wealth. But without a solid foundation, such speculative gains can lead to a hard fall. In our previous life, James, due to his poor background, was diligent and ambitious, often studying in the library with me. To secure a government job, he never slacked off. But now, he was rarely seen in the library, his name absent from the scholarship list, and he was seldom seen on campus. The last time I saw him was at the New Year's Eve party at the end of the semester. I was the host, and he sat in the front row with his dorm mates. He looked radiant, dressed in designer clothes, but lacked the youthful vigor and instead resembled a nouveau riche. On stage, I wore an elegant gown, handling sudden situations gracefully, controlling the event's rhythm with ease. Whenever I glanced at James, I found him staring at me, eyes wide with surprise and even a hint of nostalgia. We were like the most familiar strangers separated by centuries. Chapter 5. After the party, I received many gifts and confessions from boys. As I was about to leave, I overheard James talking to a friend. Zoe is getting prettier and was directly accepted into grad school. What kind of guy would she like? Why? Interested in her? Better not. What do you mean? I'm not good enough for her? Not that. She may look like this now, but dating her is a nightmare. She's sensitive, suspicious, and demanding. Really? You talk like you dated her. Didn't you reject her? When were you two together? Never mind. Marrying a woman like her is bad luck, and worse, she can't have kids. The friend laughed. She can't have kids? Did she have a termination? If she can't have kids, I wouldn't want her. James, that bastard. We were no longer in each other's lives, yet he still badmouthed me. How infuriating. Just as I was about to confront him, a tall, burly man suddenly scolded James. A grown man with such a vile mouth. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? She's a good girl, and you repeatedly slander her. You're inhuman. James retorted. Why are you angry? I'm telling the truth for everyone's good, so they don't get misled by her looks. Believe it or not. Xavier, who in our previous life had introduced me to doctors for IVF. Tall, stocky, and righteous, he was already a chief physician at a young age. He had even given me a Christmas gift, a pair of knitted socks and a shawl. Simple but warm. Xavier suddenly grabbed James by the collar. You're spouting nonsense. She's nothing like you say. If you slander her again, I'll make you regret it. James shamelessly laughed. What? Gonna hit me? Who are you to her? Zoe may be a jerk, but even she wouldn't want you. As Xavier raised his fist to punch James, I casually walked over. Xavier. Everyone turned to look at me in shock. Ignoring them, I quietly said to him, Xavier, I like you. Will you be my boyfriend? He stood there stunned, before pushing James away and walking towards me in disbelief. What did you say? I raised my head slightly, looking at him sincerely. I said, will you be my boyfriend? When I repeated it, many people came out of the hall and heard my confession, gathering around to watch. He awkwardly asked, Are you joking? Truth or dare? I firmly replied, No joke. I like you, Xavier. Will you be my boyfriend? If not, I'll ask again another time. Whoa! The crowd cheered. Be together, be together. Finally understanding, he stammered. Of course. I'd be honored to be your boyfriend. Can you walk me back to my dorm? Of course. He blushed and awkwardly offered. Can I carry your things? I handed him my bags. Thank you. I didn't look at James, not caring about his reaction, as I left with Xavier. Chapter 6. After saying goodbye to Xavier outside the dorm building, I received a message from James. It was from an unfamiliar number since I had long blocked him on social media. Zoe, are you out of your mind? Are you with that fatty Xavier just to get back at me? I was amused by his message. Who does he think he is? Among all the average guys, he truly is the most delusional. Confessing to Xavier earlier was indeed out of spite, but it was also a way to slap him in the face. Before that, Xavier and I often met in the library, and after getting to know each other, we frequently saved seats for one another. Xavier is entirely different from James. He is reserved, steady, wise, and humble. He may not be conventionally handsome, and he is a bit chubby, but his features are well defined, and his eyes carry a certain charisma. More importantly, in my past life, Xavier was a well-regarded surgeon. When my father had a stroke from the stress caused by my issues with James, it was Xavier who saved him from the brink of death. During my father's hospital stay, I saw firsthand what it meant to have a doctor's compassion. If I had to choose a man to spend my life with, I'd prefer someone of good character. Even if life became mundane and love faded, he wouldn't treat me badly. I deleted the message and blocked the number again, choosing silence and ignoring him. Any more words exchanged with him would be a waste. I hoped he would stay out of my life forever. However, the next day, he called me from another number. "Let's meet and talk. I know you've been reborn too. What is there to talk about? The moment our lives restarted, we should have gone our separate ways. Stop bothering me, Zoe, you ruined me in our past life. I can't just let it go. I've been losing sleep. Though I hate to admit it, you were the woman I loved the most. We were crushed by money and life's trivialities in our past life, causing us to lose our way and forget our true selves." James's voice choked up. "Zoe, we've changed now. We have a chance to start over. I can forgive everything and start anew. Can you forgive me too?" I was shocked by his words, and after a moment of silence, I said slowly, "Do you have time? Let's meet." James was ecstatic. "Okay, I'll come to your dorm's entrance right now." "No need. Let's meet at the cafe by the east gate. I'll see you there." "All right, I'm heading over now." After hanging up, I put on a jacket and headed out. It was a 10-minute walk, and from a distance, I saw James's flashy car parked at the entrance. Entering the cafe, I saw James seated by the window, exuding an air of arrogance. A pretty girl approached him to ask for his contact info. James coldly replied, "Sorry, I have someone I like." The girl walked away disappointed, and I noticed his smug smile. Upon seeing me, he adjusted his expression. The cafe was filled with the aroma of coffee beans. James leaned forward eagerly. "See that car outside? It's mine, worth over 200,000. I also bought a big house, something we always dreamed of. My life has changed, and if we start over, we could be very happy." I looked at him mockingly. "What made you change your mind suddenly? Just the other day, you told someone that marrying me would bring bad luck." James looked regretful. "I said that in anger. Knowing other men are eyeing you made me feel like I was being cheated on. Zoe, I realize now I still have feelings for you. Let's consider the past life a dream and start over." I finally understood. "So you truly loved me?" James replied, "Of course, I truly loved you." I asked, "And what about Sarah?" Chapter 7. As long as you're willing to come back to me, I'll break up with Sarah immediately. James said seriously. When we first got reborn, I was still stuck in the past and angry, which is why I got together with Sarah. Even in our past life, she was just a fling. In my heart, you're my wife, the one I want to spend my life with. But I have trouble getting pregnant. What about your mom? You eventually got pregnant, didn't you? And now that I'm well off, we can go abroad for better medical treatments. You're still young, Zoe. You don't need to worry." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. James's expression turned stiff. "What do you mean?" I looked at him with disdain. "James, even though you can use your memories to earn a lot of money, you haven't grown at all. How can you be so confident that I would fall into the same pit twice? Have you forgotten how you and your mother hurt me?" James grew angry. "But you already got your revenge. You ended our child's life. I lost my job, lost the lawsuit, and ended up with nothing. My mom was hospitalized from the stress. Despite all this, I'm willing to forgive you and give us another chance. Shouldn't you be touched?" "Ha! All that was your karma, you're just desserts. In this life, the next, and the one after that, I will never forgive you, James. And I no longer love you. After discovering your affair with Sarah, the only thing I felt for you was hatred. This time, I would rather marry a pig or a dog than have any interest in you." I picked up the cold coffee on the table and splashed it in his face. "Wake up and see clearly. I'm not the same woman without self-respect who you could deceive." People around us turned to look. James, drenched and humiliated, glared at me. "Zoe, you'll regret this." I didn't bother to argue further and left the cafe with large strides. That evening, a video of me splashing coffee on James was posted on the school's confession wall. The video was short but clearly captured my last words. "Wow, this is some juicy gossip. So Sarah really was the third wheel. Our goddess is so cool. That's how you deal with a scumbag." James used to look down on Zoe, but now that she's successful and beautiful, he must be regretting it. Xavier saw the video and called me. "Zoe, did he harass you again? Why didn't you tell me?" I replied, "I handled it. He shouldn't dare come back anymore." Xavier hesitated, sounding a bit unhappy. "Zoe, I received an acceptance letter from Harvard University. I was thrilled." "That's amazing. Congratulations. But why do you sound unhappy?" Xavier said, "We just got together and I don't want to." He was considering giving up the opportunity for me. I reassured him, "It's okay. If we're meant to be together, we'll still be together after 4 years. It's a test of our relationship. If we can survive long distance for 4 years, we'll get married." Chapter 8. 4 years later, Xavier returned as promised. Like in the previous life, he became a doctor at the city hospital. However, this time, with my encouragement, he had developed a habit of working out, losing weight, and transforming into a handsome man. After a romantic proposal, we arranged a meeting with both sets of parents. Coincidentally, Xavier booked the same restaurant where my family had met James's parents in the previous life. Xavier came from a family of doctors. His parents were not extremely wealthy, but they were kind and humble. Xavier's father handed me a bank card. "Zoe, this is for you and Xavier to buy a house. It's only $1.5 million, enough for a down payment on a 3-bedroom. I hope you don't mind." Xavier's mother gave me several jewelry boxes and a large red envelope. "Here are the 3 gold pieces and a jade bracelet passed down from his grandmother. If you have any particular requests for the betrothal gifts, please let us know and we'll do our best to meet them." Their family treated us with respect and sincerity, making my parents extremely happy. Thinking back to the meeting with James's parents felt like a dream. Halfway through the meal, I went to the bathroom. In the hallway, 2 children were running around, bumping into people. With a scream from a waitress, hot soup spilled everywhere, filling the air with steam. Fortunately, I was far enough away not to be burned, but it was a scare. The 2 children cried in fear, while the waitress, who was badly scalded, screamed in pain. I quickly splashed a basin of cold water over her. Others rushed to help. Soon, the children's parents arrived, and I realized the 2 people holding the children were Sarah and James's mother. James's mother held the little boy, about 2 years old, and yelled at the restaurant staff. "What happened? How could you spill soup? If my grandson gets hurt, I'll make you pay." Sarah added, "This is unbelievable. Such a small child, scared out of his wits. What kind of restaurant is this? I'll file a complaint." The 2 of them berated the staff, while the injured waitress cried and cursed. "It was your kids running around that caused the spill. How dare you blame us?" James's mother retorted, "What nonsense! You weren't careful, and now you're blaming our kids? Ridiculous." The waitress insisted, "It was your kids. They ran into me, causing the spill. You must take responsibility." A heated argument ensued, with James's mother and Sarah out-talking the waitress, recording videos, and threatening to expose the restaurant if they didn't get compensation and an apology. I didn't want to get involved, but I couldn't stand by. It was indeed the kids running around that caused the accident. I can testify. Everyone turned to look at me, and the restaurant manager was grateful. "Thank you for speaking up for us." Sarah recognized me. "Zoe, what are you doing here?" James's mother, who didn't know me, said, "You're with them, aren't you? How dare you falsely accuse these children?" Sarah added, "That's right. She has a grudge against our family. Her testimony doesn't count." I didn't want to argue further and suggested to the manager, "Why not check the surveillance footage?" The manager sighed. "It's broken." At this point, several other customers came forward. I saw it too. It was the kids running around. Me too. It was definitely the kids. James's mother began to throw a tantrum. "You're all in on it. You're bullying us." Someone then approached with a phone. I was recording a video and caught the whole thing. Sarah and James's mother lost their momentum. James's mother said, "They're just kids. Why argue over this?" Sarah, holding the child, tried to leave. At that moment, James arrived from the elevator, and Xavier, worried about my long absence, came to find me. After understanding the situation, James was furious, shouting at Sarah, "How could you let this happen? All you do is play with your phone." Sarah retorted, "It's not my fault. Your mom said running and jumping is good for them." James snapped, "She's used to country life. What does she know? You can't even take care of the kids without blaming others. All you do is spend my money." Watching their argument, I felt like I was seeing a glimpse of my past life. This was James, sweet and caring while dating, but a different person after marriage. Xavier and I returned to our private room, leaving their mess behind. We resumed our meal with our parents, immersed in our happiness, as if nothing had happened. After the meal, Xavier went to get the car, and our parents stepped outside. I went to pay with the card Xavier gave me, but James stopped me. He was impeccably dressed but looked exhausted. "Zoe, are you and Xavier getting married?" I took out a wedding invitation. "Would you like to come?" He hesitated, taking the invitation, and said out of nowhere, "I'm divorcing Sarah." Surprised, I asked, "Didn't she give you a son and a daughter?" James replied through gritted teeth, "Zoe, I know I was wrong. I really know now. In our past life, you did so much for our marriage, and I betrayed you out of folly. I swear if you give me another chance, I'll treat you right. You're the woman I love most. Please, give me another chance." I didn't hesitate for a second. "No! Belated affection is worthless, James. Your love is worth less than dirt. I already have someone who loves and cherishes me. Don't even think about it." James's eyes reddened, and he began to cry uncontrollably. I felt no sympathy, only that his karma had come too late. I turned and left, his sobbing growing fainter behind me. Xavier approached and put his arm around my shoulder. "We're going to try on wedding dresses later. Our moms want to come too." I smiled brightly at him. "Sure." Chapter 10. After that encounter, James seemed to lose his mind, sending me lengthy apologies and confessions. Every time I blocked a number, he got a new one. He even waited for me outside the TV station where I worked. One day, he ran into Xavier, who didn't hesitate to confront him. After that, James didn't dare come back. On our wedding day, James showed up with a red envelope containing a generous amount. He got drunk at the reception but thankfully didn't cause any trouble. Half a year later, at a class reunion, I heard that James and Sarah had divorced because Sarah's youngest son wasn't his. Apparently, after James got rich, Sarah couldn't handle the loneliness and had an affair. The youngest son was the result of that affair. I recalled James's hesitant expression when he mentioned divorcing Sarah. He must have known about her infidelity back then. What goes around comes around. He finally tasted betrayal from a partner. After the reunion, as Xavier and I prepared to leave, he received a call from the hospital and had to go in. Late that night, as I was about to sleep, Xavier called, sounding urgent. "Zoe, are you awake? What's wrong? What happened?" Xavier replied calmly. "It's James. He was the patient I was called to save. He's in critical condition and keeps calling your name, wanting to see you one last time." I paused for a moment before saying, "Xavier, I secretly went to the hospital for a checkup. I was going to tell you tonight. I'm expecting." Xavier couldn't hide his joy. "Really? That's wonderful." Yes, it was wonderful. This time, I conceived naturally. I didn't want to sacrifice my career and happiness for a child, so before we got married, we told Xavier's parents that I might not be able to conceive. Initially, his parents were disappointed, but later, Xavier's mother approached me. "Zoe, we've discussed it. If you really can't have a child, we'll adopt one. As long as you and Xavier can grow old together, it doesn't matter." I knew this was thanks to Xavier, who convinced his parents. A man who truly loves you will protect you. Someone who doesn't love you will not care if you are hurt. So I won't go. It's bad luck to mix joy with sorrow. That night, James closed his eyes forever. We later learned from the news that he had been poisoned by Sarah. James had been ruthless, finding someone to harm Sarah's lover until he was paralyzed for life. He even used my previous method against him, transferring assets to leave Sarah penniless. It was truly karma. In the end, Sarah was sentenced for intentional harm.